All right, hello everybody. So I am on the road, as you can see, but I wanted to take a few minutes and address the latest bullshit Der Spiegel story against Till Lindemann. You know, Der Spiegel, they are like a woman scorned. Hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. You know, they might as well be Glenn Close from Fatal Attraction. I won't be ignored, Dan. I won't be ignored, Till. You know, they're mad because they were publicly humiliated when Till Lindemann, and in a court of law, when Till Lindemann's lawyers did what people almost never do in these situations. They fought back. Till Lindemann and his lawyers took Der Spiegel to court for that outrageous, apparently bullshit cover story that they ran against Lindemann and Rammstein, what, a month and a half, 2 months ago? And you could argue that this was the story that really energized this widespread movement against Rammstein. You know, a huge cover story in Der Spiegel that made it international news. That made it a big deal. That made people who had not been paying attention perk up and say, "What?" Well, it turns out that that cover story was bullshit, and they were called out for it by an official German court in Hamburg, and they had to retract that story. Der Spiegel had to retract it. But they didn't learn anything, and now they're doubling down. They're pissed, and so they're doubling down, and they have made it their mission in life, it seems, or their mission for this year, to go after Till Lindemann and not to rest until they've brought him down. So there's a news story that just came out earlier today in Germany, and it's a story of a 28-year-old woman, again anonymous, right? Because these women, they stand behind their stories so much, you know, and they care so much about getting the truth out about this horrible Till Lindemann and Rammstein, so that other women won't make the same mistakes they made, or other women won't fall into this trap. Yeah, they care about it so much, and they have the courage of their convictions to such a degree that they won't give us their name or show their face. In fact, if you look at the Spiegel article today, there's a picture of this woman who's now 28 staring out the window, you know, probably in her apartment, staring out the window, probably thinking about, oh, those awful things that happened with Till. And there's a plant in her face. I mean, it's like the most awkward photograph because they didn't want to show her face, right? And so there she is staring out the window, and then there's this leaf from this plant sticking in her face. Totally anonymous. No corroboration provided by Der Spiegel. We have to take their word for it that Der Spiegel has sufficiently verified her story with others, you know, friends and family at the time who knew. Okay. Yeah, just like Rolling Stone years ago verified that BS cover story, a rape on campus that turned out to Jacqueline, that turned out to be complete lies. Anyway, so this woman is claiming that, well, she's 28 now, and she's claiming that, 13 years ago, when she was 15, she had a consensual sexual relationship with Till Lindemann. She's not claiming assault. She's not claiming that he took advantage of her or anything. She's claiming that, just in hindsight now, she sees that there was a big power imbalance and that she was way too young. Well, look, I know that a lot of people have, especially in America, in my country, have a big problem with the idea that 15 is an appropriate age of consent. And the way that things are going now, there's some people, a lot of people increasingly, who view a 15-year-old as just a baby. Totally not sexual, can't make decisions, certainly can't be sexually aggressive, or if they are sexually aggressive, don't listen to them because they're just babies. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, we might as well put them in diapers, shut them up in a nursery, and not even let them go outside because they're so vulnerable and stupid and unadult, right? Well, I don't buy that view of someone who's 15, okay? I've talked about this before. I remember being 15, and honestly, you couldn't have been much more sheltered than I was at the age of 15. I grew up, I've told you this before, I grew up in a very conservative, very sheltered Southern Baptist, East Texas home. I wasn't even allowed to date really through in high school. Didn't do drugs, didn't have sex, didn't drink, nothing. Okay? Went to church 3 times a week. And guess what? I think that I consider myself able to have chosen to have sex back then. And yes, to have chosen to have sex with an older person if I wanted to. I remember at that age being an adult in many ways. I remember being sexual, even though I didn't have sex. I remember being able to understand and handle the world around me and to handle interactions around me. I remember all that. So when people say to me, 15, it's just a child, it's just a baby, I say, I just don't agree with that. I just don't. And historically speaking, if we look back at what, through most of human history, through almost all of human history, if we look back at what was expected of 15-year-olds, 15-year-olds, it was very, very different than the low infantilizing expectations that people have today now. But nevertheless, I understand that there is a healthy debate that we could have as to whether a 15-year-old should be allowed to have sex, whether that should be considered an adult, whether they should be having sex with someone older, etc. I understand. And I understand that in the US that our age of consent is a little higher than 15. But I also understand that in Europe, traditionally, the age of consent has been and continues to be lower than here, that 15 is generally a normal age of consent in Europe. In fact, in some places that we consider civilized, it's lower. So in Germany, the age of consent when this occurred, when this supposedly occurred, and I'm not even saying I believe it, but in Germany, when this supposedly occurred, the age of consent was 14. 14 unless someone has some kind of cognitive, mental disability that impairs their ability to make decisions, all right? But 14 was the age of consent. And again, no one is alleging that there was any kind of force used or blackmail or anything like that. All right? So some people can dislike this. They can say 15 is too young. They can say it's inappropriate. But for decades and decades and decades, and in fact, the whole history of rock stars have been having sex with people who are 15. 16, 17, 18. They've been doing it. And I understand it's not acceptable anymore for many in society, and I understand that that's not the age of consent in the United States, but I'm just telling you that is, for a long time, that was acceptable, and 15 was not an unusual age of consent in Europe, and still is not. So people can disapprove if they want of the idea of Till Lindemann, rock star, having sex with a 15-year-old, but he was not breaking the law, and he was not breaking the socio-cultural mores of his society. Germans have always had, and Europeans in general have always had, a different view of sexuality and consent and age than Americans have. The last decades. I mean, Americans used to have a more open-minded view about the age and consent thing as well. But Europeans have generally seen things differently. And so this is not unusual or weird, or this is not something that 13 years ago would have made people gasp. My guy, he was in the Army, and he spent a number of years stationed in Germany. He did a tour in Iraq, a couple of tours in Iraq, and has been around the world, but he was stationed in Germany for several years, and he socialized with Germans, and he dated a German woman. No, not a 15-year-old, okay, she was a 20-something-year-old woman, but he dated a German woman, and one of the things that he said to me about German culture is that the women there, they have sex earlier. He said it was no big deal for a 16-year-old to be having sex. I mean, we have 16-year-olds having sex here in America as well, but over there, it was much more normalized, and he said it was understood and acceptable that people mature much earlier over there, and that sex between someone who was 15 and someone who was older was not seen as being strange. And so what I'm saying is that some people can dislike this now if they want to, that the age of consent was what it was in Germany, or that is what it is in a lot of the world, including Europe. People can dislike that, and people in America can have a problem with that, but it was totally acceptable in Germany at the time. It was totally legal. I believe it still is the age of consent, right? Someone can correct me on that if wrong, but 14 was definitely the age of consent back then. And people can have a problem with that, but it was legal in Germany, legal in much of Europe, and socially acceptable. And so you just don't, you cannot cancel Till Lindemann for this. You just don't. If you're wanting to cancel Till Lindemann for this, assuming that it even happened, which again, I'm not conceding, but if you're wanting to cancel Till Lindemann for this, you just don't have a leg to stand on. You don't. All right? It was legal at the time, it was acceptable at the time. And frankly, personally, a 15-year-old hanging around with rock stars, running with a fast crowd and wanting to have sex with a rock star, I don't see where he's the bad guy in that. I don't. But it really doesn't matter, honestly, what you think about it one way or the other, because it can't be proved. And I have been through enough of this bullshit with other cases, seeing the way in these Me Too cases, these heavily publicized, media incentivized situations, I've seen how many people lie. How many people lie to the media, and how the media engages in improper journalism nowadays with these types of cases. Okay, the media just cannot be trusted. And so, this anonymous woman comes out, there's no proof, there's no verification. She can't even say that Lindemann actually assaulted her. She can't even say that it wasn't consensual, or that he tricked her or manipulated her or whatever. She says, yeah, I had consensual sex. Now I look back, I think I was too young, and there was a power imbalance because he was a rich and famous rock star. Well, sweetie, that's probably why you started having sex with him in the first place, was because of those power imbalances. All right? Why do so many women go after rock stars? Why do they go after rich men? Why do they go after men with power and influence? Okay? Why are women hypergamous? Why? Well, we could go on and on why. But it is that power imbalance. Okay? If fame is now being considered a power imbalance, and if money is now being considered a power imbalance, then we're in a hell of a lot of trouble as a society, because women gravitate. Lots of women, lots of cognitively completely sane women gravitate toward those power imbalances. Women generally, let me just tell you something that you all already know. Most women are not interested in dating their lessers. They're interested in dating and gravitate to their betters. Betters in terms of better income, better status, fame, fortune, even an aggressive, domineering attitude. I mean, what is the whole alpha male thing? Women love alpha males. Well, what does alpha male imply? Alpha as in like you're above everyone else, okay? Well, women, if we women are going to pursue men who are superior to us in various ways. I mean, I wanted the reason I'm with the guy that I'm with is because I wanted to be with someone who was more intelligent than me. And on some days he is. But if we women are going to pursue men who we perceive as our superiors because they're our superiors in these different ways, then we can't very well claim assault for that superiority, because that superiority was the very thing that we were attracted to and going for. So I have just had it with all of this bullshit, and I've had it with people changing their minds in retrospect. I've had it with these anonymous, unverified stories. I've had it with the bullshit journalistic hit jobs. I've had it with all of this, and mostly I have had it with these false narratives that are being disseminated now without anyone questioning it. And I'm tired ultimately of the infantilization of women who can think for themselves, decide for themselves, who have desires and can be manipulative, and who are powerful, and yet are being depicted as these weak, infantilized, stupid things. I mean, I guess we women should just not date at all, because apparently we're just not smart enough or advanced enough to deal with any man, right? It's just their power differentials just all around now. Oh my God. So that's how I feel about that Spiegel article. And like I keep saying, I was 15 once. And I was raised in an ultra sheltered environment, Christian conservative, East Texas. Parents didn't want me to date. I wasn't really allowed to date. I couldn't drink, couldn't have sex or whatever. And yet I remember what I was like at that age. And I was no child. And if I had chosen to have sex with an older man, that wouldn't have been due to him manipulating me with the power imbalance or him committing some kind of psychological assault. I just don't buy it. And again, I understand there are people who disagree on the age thing, and we can have that conversation. But you got nothing on Lindemann here. You still got nothing on Lindemann. And you in the media, you can keep piling up these anonymous stories where you're not even saying anything if you want to. And you can keep upholding ridiculous women like Shelby, ridiculous liars like Shelby. You can keep doing that if you want. You can hold that up as the best of womanhood. But I'm going to keep fighting you on it, and I'm going to keep calling you out for it because we just can't have this anymore. And, it's the rock stars right now, and it's the edgy rock stars right now, like Till Lindemann and Manson, Marilyn Manson, and some others. But that's just because they're the low-hanging fruit. And if we don't start fighting this and try to put a stop to this, then it's just going to move to this to the less outrageous targets, to the less edgy guys, to normal men. And it won't just be, a 15-year-old thing. They'll use whatever they can. They'll use whatever they can. As we've seen, they're trying pretty much every approach and every trick in the book with this Lindemann Rammstein stuff. So, and I also want to address some comments that I have seen the last couple of days. And I want to talk more about this at a later time, but I want to address some comments I've seen the last couple of days, the last several weeks actually. Some people saying that we should not talk about this when there's a bad article, or when there's a Der Spiegel article that comes out, or there's a new documentary hit job on Rammstein, like there was this week. We shouldn't talk about it. We should just be quiet. Don't feed the fire. Don't fuel the fire. If you're quiet, if you don't respond, then you'll starve the story. And eventually, before you know it, the story will die down. The stories will die down, and people will forget about it, and that'll be it. With all due respect, that just doesn't work. All right? I don't think that people who are espousing this point of view, that if you're canceled, then or if someone's trying to cancel you, then you just put your head down and shut up and just go about your normal business and don't draw attention to it and don't respond. And if you're someone like me who is trying to support people who are in danger of being canceled or who have been canceled, like Marilyn Manson, then you should just then we should just shut up, and we shouldn't call any attention to or respond to any of the articles or any of the insane hit jobs in the media. Just don't acknowledge them, and they'll go away. That's just not true. I don't know. It may have been true at some point, but not in this modern age. And people who are saying this kind of stuff, I'm sorry, but they're stuck in some kind of past. They don't understand new media. They don't understand the nature of media at all today. They don't understand the nature of the Me Too beast. They don't understand cancel culture. Do you all think that if I stopped talking about Rammstein, and I stopped talking about Marilyn Manson, and I stopped talking about some of these other people that I think have been unfairly Me Too'd, do you really think that in any way would lessen the attacks on these people? And not just me. Let's say that all of us who support Rammstein, and all of us who support Marilyn Manson, and all of us who support the various objects of these Me Too hit jobs, let's say that we all shut up. It wouldn't even make a dent in the coverage, in the bad coverage that these guys have gotten and are getting. It wouldn't. All right? Do you think that those of you who are propounding this idea that we need to be silent, do you really think that if we'd all been silent, that the story about Rammstein would have gone away faster, or the stories about Manson, the bad coverage that he's gotten, would have gone away? That without a foil, Evan Rachel Wood is going to say, "Oh, never mind, forget about it, I take it back." Or that without a foil, without us arguing with them, that Rolling Stone would have decided, well, there's no one really arguing against us or whatever, so let's just fold up coverage and stop attacking these people. No, it doesn't work that way. First of all, those of us who are dissenting against Me Too and cancel culture and these witch hunts, we're not powerful enough. We're not loud enough to even make a dent in that direction. Really, all that we've been able to do is get some people to pay attention to the counter narrative. We've put a counter narrative out there so that those people who are free thinkers, those people who actually have intelligence, will have something else to look at, right? I mean, thank God for us putting the counter narrative out there. I'm not patting myself on the back, and I'm not patting all of us on the back, but when I try to imagine what things would be like for Rammstein, or even for Marilyn Manson, or Johnny Depp, without a group of people defending them online and fighting back against the media and presenting a counter narrative and fighting back against these accusers, metaphorically speaking, when I try to imagine what the situations for these people would have been like if we had not presented a counter narrative, it would be much, much worse. And today, I can't speak for the past, but today, this modern period that we're living in now, if you're quiet, then the narrative against you, it'll just roll over you. It'll just roll over you. And so if I were to shut up, and if you were to shut up, all of you who are with me and trying to defend these guys, if we were to shut up, all that would do is remove the counter narrative. All it would do is remove the voices who are saying, hey, there's another way of looking at this. Hey, don't believe everything you hear or read. Hey, this is a scam, and this is what's motivating it. Thank God that we're out here and we put some stuff out in the world, some counter narratives out in the world, so that those people who do have some intelligence can say, you know what, I kind of felt like there was something wrong with all of this. And there is. Look, these people are putting it into words. I can't tell you how many people have written to me or have DM'd me or commented on my videos. And, nowadays and for a long time, I haven't had time to look at 99% of the comments and stuff I get. But I look at a little here and there when I can. I can't tell you how many people have contacted me and said, without your stuff, I would have had no idea that there's another perspective on this. I thank you for presenting a counter narrative, because I kind of felt in my heart, they'll say, I kind of felt in my heart or in my mind, I kind of had this sense that there was something wrong, but I couldn't really put it into words. Or I felt like, well, there just has to be something wrong with me, and I was afraid, and I was kind of quiet, and I wouldn't speak up for these things that I believe. But then when I watched your video, or when I read what you had to say online, or when I heard your podcast, you put into words what I was kind of already suspecting, what I was kind of already wondering, and you gave me a more filled out, complete, intelligent perspective on why we can't just believe all this stuff that the media are saying, and why there's something wrong with Me Too, and why there's something wrong with cancel culture. And you gave me a different array of information and different points to think about, and some counterpoints and counter narratives. Thank you, because otherwise I would have just kind of felt, well, I guess that I'm wrong. I guess that I'm the only one who feels this way. I guess the problem was with me, and I would have just moved on. I've gotten so many messages like that. Being quiet doesn't work. Giving in doesn't work. Conceding anything to these people that doesn't have to or need to be conceded, it doesn't work. All right? And yeah, it takes some courage, but the great thing about courage and the great thing about these situations is that once you start speaking out, it actually does get easier. The first time that people speak out, the first time that I did a video, the first time that I said some controversial stuff online publicly, yeah, I was nervous. And I've seen it with other people as well. But then the more that you start doing it, the more that you realize, I'm sorry, it's cheesy, but it's true, that ultimately what we have to fear is fear itself. And that fear paralyzes people. And unfortunately, there are a number of lawyers who are feeding into that fear and advising their clients to shut up and to not wage any kind of a public campaign and to not speak out. And I'm just so glad that Till Lindemann's lawyers They are Me Too experts. Apparently, Schertz Bergman, that is their thing, is dealing with these kinds of Me Too allegations and these hoaxes and these media wars. And Schertz Bergman, they have been hyper aggressive. They've been taking people to court, not just news outlets, but they've initiated successful legal action against Kayla Schicks, Shelby, some of these others. And Schertz Bergman has been giving interviews. Their main lawyers have been giving major interviews about this situation and about the larger context of Me Too. They are getting after it. They are going on the offense. And Till Lindemann, he has not spoken out yet in an interview, although this whole thing just started, 2 months ago, so give him a little time. I think he will. But he's not spoken out in an interview, but he's being very publicly aggressive in his own way. He is displaying a defiance in multiple ways, from that Kill Till t-shirt that he wore to changing the lyrics in his songs and some other things. He has been displaying, going to the Kit Kat Club a second night after all the pearl clutching freakouts of the night before. He has been displaying a kind of profound defiance, public defiance, and it's great to see. Because if you haven't done anything wrong, and if they're coming after you unfairly, then don't act like you did something wrong. Don't cower, don't get quiet, fight. And there's a huge silent majority of people out there who already instinctively, inherently deep down know that there is something wrong with all of this bullshit, and they know that it's bad for society, and they're afraid of it too, and they're waiting for some people with balls, and it can be women as well, but some people with balls, metaphorically speaking, who are accused to actually start fighting back. They're waiting for that. And when that happens, and we're seeing it with Rammstein, there are a lot of people who will get behind the truth and get behind those who are being accused. But if the people who are being accused, or if their supporters like us, get scared and shut up, then why would anyone else care? If the person who's being accused can't muster courage enough to speak up, and if the people who believe, like me, who believe these people are falsely accused, if we can't muster the courage to speak up, and we're quiet, then what incentive is there for any normal person who's much less invested in all of this to care? you know? So, that's my opinion. You can disagree if you want, but that is my belief, and it will continue to be my belief, I imagine. All right? Okay, so I'm going to have a lot more coming out this weekend on Rammstein and on some other things. I've got a lot of videos in the queue, backed up, some things I've been working on for a while that are going to come out soon, and then I'll be also doing more on my Patreon this week. So I'm trying everything I can to get the word out on these cases and on this situation that we found ourselves in as a society. And I appreciate your support. All of my links are below. Like, subscribe, donate, all of that. Even a little bit. It's very helpful and encouraging. And look, I think some people think I've got some big operation behind me. I'm paid by none of these people. None of the people that I defend have ever paid me. Okay? There's absolutely no incentives from those angles. And I don't have a staff. I don't even have an assistant. It is me. It is me. All right. And so I appreciate your support. I depend on it. And regardless, I'm gonna keep getting the word out there and doing what I know needs to be done. What other people lack the courage or the insight to do. All right. Bye, everybody.